Everyone, welcome back to what are we on, Benny, now? Episode 4? Wow.
Yeah, four.
Episode 4 of the Bodega Vibes. We're here with Mr. Paul from Notify and Mr. Benny from Hyperspace, and yours truly, Brian Jen. Hey Paul, how's it going?
Oh, I can talk now. Just I don't know how long the intro is gonna go for. So no, thanks for having me, guys. What's the format of this? Like you have to
Actually,
send me anything.
funny enough, we've only done 3. So in the beginning, or the first one was just me and Benny talking about what this is going to be about, slash Solana as a whole. Then we talked to Neutrality from NFT Inspect. Super interesting conversation, super philosophical. And then we talked to Easy Eats about content curation. And all 3 of those were pretty structured. I know you wanted to just like talk. I just want to talk. I feel like a lot happened recently. So frankly, there really is no structure for this one.
I love it. It's like the best thing to do.
I actually wanted to like drop a bomb and like talk.
Oh,
Are you quitting?
big.
Is that what you're doing? You're quitting? you better go like Slack Santosh and be like, yo, dude, I have some alpha.
No, by bomb, I don't mean alpha. I mean like a spicy conversation.
All right. Yeah, what's up?
As people, so okay, actually, for starters, for those of you watching, I think we actually have some random viewers that are flowing in. I looked at our analytics the other day, and I think it's not all Web3 native people. So just like broadly, Paul is the founder of Notify, which works for Web3 messaging, Web3 notifications, and just like an approach to properly notifying people, pun intended, of things that are going on in Web3. We're a marketplace aggregator slash platform. And something that I thought about, I guess, while preparing for this podcast is we're both obviously long on the space. Like neither of our services slash platforms would have any value if Web3, right?
Yeah.
Right. We have like literally 0, for being honest.
Yeah.
We're clearly not in the hottest market, and we're coming off a relatively hot market. And I know people say like there's been bear markets before, and it's important to build during bear markets, and they like point to Bitcoin crashing or whatever. I personally think it's a little different because people have been exposed to NFTs, and frankly, from the moment that I joined the NFT space, like officially back in August slash November, I actually don't think much has changed in terms of like what NFTs bring to the table. Both of you correct me if I'm wrong. So I guess the like hot, spicy question is, where do we go from here, slash under the assumption that not much changes with the narrative slash what's going on with NFTs in the near future? Could we unbiasedly, proudly say that this will last?
That's a very like packed question, man. Yeah, I mean, here's what I think, and at least kind of my experiences. So I bought my first NFT like in, I think, February, right? Relatively still new to the whole industry, but I think during that time, from then to now, and then actually personally going through launching our own NFT and minting it, I can probably like at least assert that the meta has changed, right? So I do think that things have changed underlying to like what NFTs are. I think especially during this time, during this bear market, whatever you want to call it, I think you no longer need to have like 100,000 followers on Twitter, right? I think you need to have product first, kind of mindset. And I think generally what I've been seeing in the last, month or two is that like more projects who actually have something on mainnet or have a team of builders that aren't full anonymous, like those are the projects getting, more attention, right, than they used to. So I do think that something has definitely shifted, right? I think the community has always been there, right? But I think the community now has become a little bit more smart about where to invest their money into, right? And I think it just happens naturally and organically if things in the macro is just not going as well. And that's one of the main I think discoveries that we had was we discovered one day like, hey, like we had like 2,000 Twitter followers or something, and we were able to mint out because some alpha groups found that we were actually a real company, right? Or we had a real team, we had a product, we had a vision of how to solve things and scale out. So yeah, I think the underlying like meta has definitely changed, and I think the culture has shifted a little bit, right? So people are getting just more intelligent about what they put their money into. um I don't know, Benny. Well, if you have any thoughts on this, I probably have a lot of
Yeah,
thoughts on this.
I always have a lot of thoughts on this. I'd say the biggest thing about NFTs that I think sells is mystery. Um, if there's something mysterious about a project, like even with that Degentown mint recently, there was mystery behind it, and kind of that attribute of like you don't know what you're getting into, intriguing. Like it could go to the moon, but it's probably not. People were buying it solely for like those reasons. That's what sells in this space for me, is what I've noticed. And if you look at like the top projects, they kind of had some mysterious aspects, like D Gods, for example. They were a bit of a mystery for a while,
I
and
still
still
don't know
are.
what's happening with DGods.
Yeah,
I'm still very confused. Like,
yeah. So I just think that's the biggest thing in this space. And but I do think overall as a whole, it's become a bit more serious with what people are choosing to invest in. And I think that's extremely important moving forward.
Hmm.
so I know you hit upon this on the Degentown, but can you like walk me through what the hell that is? Because like I saw it on Twitter. I saw like like really like flaming tweets back and forth. I still don't know exactly what happened and what it is, right? So I don't want to like hash too much of it, but like, can you just give me like a quick TLDR of like what it is, what happened, and where the state of affairs is right now? Because I have no idea.
Well, we're
Yeah.
getting we're getting really spicy. For full disclaimer, me and Benny have both been personally vocal about this, and
Oh, okay.
um, so I
Yeah,
On
think,
Twitter?
very helpful.
but we are obviously. Actually, I don't know if we want to be careful. I'm happy to talk about it very intrinsically, but
Nah,
it's
let me speak. Everything we said about it on Twitter or anywhere has been facts.
correct, correct, correct.
So it originally started out as some Ethereum influencers who have launched a few projects. They wanted to launch a degen mint on Solana after seeing some other Solana influencers
Uh-huh.
be successful at it. What we didn't know is uh, it was going to be three Sol. Like that wasn't announced until it happened, and Magic Eden was aggressively marketing it, and like our take from being members of the community as well as hyperspace is that it needs to be more accountability, whereas their argument is it's Web3, but then previously they've been accountable on some things. Um, but regardless, what Degentown was doing, they were trying to so it was a three soul mint, no degen. Are you degen enough? Like the marketing was good for it. Are you degen enough? Like you created some like psychological, no roadmap, no Discord. Are you ready? Non. And then they were offering at one point, like if you sent your NFT
Mm-hmm.
like to a burner wallet, something would happen. Nobody knew what, but people were doing it. Like 2,500 people, I think, sent NFTs somewhere in that range.
2,500 people.
Yeah,
So
sent like
there's like a
three.
lot of degens then. Okay.
Like at the time, it was probably like 6 Sol, 10 Sol. Like it got as high as 15 Sol.
Holy
Uh,
shit.
yeah, so just absolute madness with this project. And then the people who sent their NFTs got another NFT called the Resurrected, and then it kind of fizzled down.
Yeah.
Some wallet drainer happened. I don't know if it was like on Discord or something, and now all consumer confidence in the project's at an all-time low, so it's hard to see it like doing well. So in my opinion, it'll probably end up being like a soft drug. That's what
So
will happen.
so like just to kind of like understand that. So some influencers from ETH came over to Solana and said we're gonna go do a completely like anonymous degenerate move and not share anything and then do a mint. Magic Eden picked that mint up, launched it, and then what happened after that? Like it literally just didn't do anything.
I mean,
No, like
the project
it
did
pumped
well.
to 15 sold.
It sold
Yeah.
out. It went to
Yeah.
a high floor. The
But then
issue is
afterwards,
the issue
yeah.
really, in my opinion, isn't even with the project itself. I mean, frankly, there's soft rugs every other day, if not every single day. The weird slash very questionable thing was how much Magic Eden was marketing this mint. And we're talking
Oh.
like I've done, I mean, as sad as it sounds, like I've looked into it just because it was frankly like kind of pissing me off. But we're talking about like one retweet for any of their other mints and
Mhm.
20 tweets regarding this mint. Not exaggerated. Like we're talking like great biggest stealth mint ever coming. More information coming soon. You guys aren't ready for this. Retweet. And then people started getting angry because they positioned this as a degen mint, and then it was 3 SOL. This was like a missed, the market really not doing well. After it sold out, people were obviously complaining. There were spaces. I was on these spaces. That Friday, they posted a thread saying, "Hey, like we got your feedback. We're sorry." And then like 10 minutes later, they deleted it, which was really weird. And then they didn't post anything until 2 days ago, 3 days ago, when it started becoming an issue again. Just timely, not to pat myself on the back, but I quite literally tweeted like an hour before that saying, "Hey, did you guys know that Magic Eden talked about this and then deleted it?" And then an hour later, they tweeted this long thing about how they're sorry, but it's actually the fault of the minters for not doing their research, blah, blah, blah. And I think the crux of the issue that most people were speaking out on is that someone of Magic Eden's influence has the ability to set new metas. And for them to poise something that's $130 or whatever it was at the time as a degen mint now allows other project creators to do the exact same thing and just basically
set a precedence kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah, I'm trying to like unpack the problem a little bit too, just to understand it. So because it looks like they launched something, it minted out, it maintained a pretty good floor price. And then thereafter, like some fallout happened about like what they're doing. But like, what is the project about? Like, is it just more like no one knows, and then therefore it's like,
well, that's what Benny meant by like mystery. Their entire bio says no roadmap, no Discord, like nothing.
But is that just for the launch, or is that like forever?
No, it's the whole thing.
Okay.
Even their tweets are disappearing.
Okay, that makes more sense, because I was like I guess it's fine to not talk about stuff and not have like a roadmap before the mint, but I thought like after the mint, it's like, okay guys, like here's the money that we made, and we built out, and here's what we're gonna do with it. So basically we just so people just basically funded someone's like treasury to do nothing.
Yeah, it was unique gambling in hopes that it would go up. There was also that thing I mentioned, you could send your NFT and then you'd maybe get something in return.
Sure.
They also had I thought they were good marketing Twitter spaces. They'd play like cryptic sounds like do 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 do
like
and
goblins.
Yeah, a little bit. They were Ethereum influencers. They knew how the game worked, and then they would mention something.
Okay, so everybody who basically put money in was just hoping that it would just
go up.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm fully knowing that there is nothing here substantial.
I mean, the people that were coming to Magic Eden's defense would say things like, "It's a Magic Eden launch. They've clearly marketed this. There must be a reason behind this. There must be something behind this."
Oh, I see. So trying to like shoot for some sort of rational.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
so then was it clear that like there was like a distinction between this project and Magic Eden, or people are blending that and saying like this is like an internal launch?
People are definitely blending it. I don't think anyone was saying it was an internal launch, but the level at which they were pumping this was extraordinary. Like we've never seen a project be so like at the core of what Magic Eden was doing.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've been off of Twitter for like 3 weeks, so I missed this entire thing.
I'm jealous.
I mean, also like like we're not okay. Fine. We have an NFT camp, like we have an NFT collection, but we're not like NFT degen. So I think we get along with a lot of other projects who are actually building on top of it. Like I think Bonafide also just did an NFT mint for their wolves and stuff. Orcanauts as well. Like, you know, we're all like, you know, secondary NFT collections, right? More for like giving back to the holders and, you know, fostering community and relationships. But yeah, I think we've been kind of like insular to like what's been happening on that side. But yeah, just quick thoughts on this. I mean, where do you kind of see like I mean, where do you see like kind of the accountability for Launchpads? Because like in a sense, like it's not completely decentralized, right? Because anybody can't just launch on these platforms, right? Um, like I guess like does the Launchpad take accountability for it by verifying and validating people who do launch, right? Because I know we launched with you guys, Hyperspace, and we went through like a verification process. I think you guys did ask for our roadmap, and we're like, here it is, right? Like how does that like play out? Do you think in the next like 2 years or so? Like I know like 2 years is very far for crypto, but how do you see that playing out for like when more people do come into Web3, right? Is like a central entity going to be inevitable, or like how would an open source or open community of like enabling these launch pads like happen?
Yeah. Any of thoughts?
Yeah, so with regards to like accountability, I think we've seen projects own up to their mistakes and then also not own up to their mistakes.
I mean, like
Uh,
Suzuki's.
yeah, but they weren't a launch pad. But what I was referring to was Balloonsville. I thought Magic Eden handled that well after the fact, in the beginning. And
Wait, sorry, what happened to, is it Balloonsville?
yeah, Balloonsville. So that was in
Dude, that sounds like a
January.
rug right there. That sounds like a
Oh,
rug.
Paul doesn't know about Balloonsville.
No, wait, what happened to
Wow.
Balloonsville?
Wow.
Dude, I'm not in
Uh,
this. I'm not an NFT degen. When did this happen? Was it before I got into crypto? Because
Yeah, you said NFTs. You said you got into NFTs
in February.
February, so
Okay.
it was a
February.
month before.
Yeah.
So Balloonsville was one of Magic Eden's first launches on their launch pad.
Oh,
And
okay.
as soon as the guy got funds, he rugged, like deleted the Discord, took the money, and ran. And also he was tweeting about it, saying like, "Ha ha ha, Magic Eden, like you need to fix your stuff or whatever." But Magic Eden refunded the whole project with like the amount of SOL that was raised.
Sure.
The utility of the project would be, people could come build. It would be a community run project with like a few leaders. I thought they handled that really well. There was another thing with accountability recently was Hydra. They also launched the same guy with a different project. So the same guy who tricked Magic Eden tricked Hydra, but yeah. So, but it was a bit different because this time he was claiming he wasn't gonna rug, and the project did really well off the bat. It went like 40x.
Wait, are you saying like somebody was like, "Hey, you rugged somebody else before, but you promise you're gonna rug this time so you can work with us"?
No. So
then,
this guy intentionally created Balloonsville to screw over Magic Eden. Said, haha. Everyone's like, oh shit. Okay. And then he went to Hydra under a different name, under a different accent, even maybe, did it like a voice filter, launched this project, and the project was legit. And he actually, his intention was to keep it going, went 40x. Then he told Hydra saying, hey, I'm actually Balloonsville, but I don't want this like affecting whatever. And then Hydra guy kind of freaked out, posted the screenshot. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's Balloonsville. And that's what happened with that.
So then it was like a secondary rug, right? It was like
essentially it became that way.
It's like Time Wonderland with Danny.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this guy's legit, but yeah, this is Sifu. Wow. Okay. Interesting. I mean,
but that's important for what you asked, Paul, because prior to Balloonsville, no one really cared because people were making dumb money, like these 10,000 questions were selling out left and right. Then Balloonsville came, everyone started getting angry, and everyone started doing this like, everyone needs to be doxxed, there needs to be escrow. So Magic Eden, obviously at the helm of all this, started doing like you're required to dox, 1-day escrow, whatever. I personally think that made it kind of less fun. And recently that whole thing kind of died down again because I feel like people's tolerance for rugs has actually gone up.
Oh,
Like,
it definitely has.
I feel like people's
100%, dude.
expectation is that it will rug, and they just want to flip.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, right? Like even like now with the macros, it's like, look, 3AC rugged everybody, right? Like Celsius, like everyone's getting rugged. Like I think it's mainstream now for crypto, more so than just NFTs, especially. But I think that's kind of like interesting degenerate side of things of like, look, we're here because we want high reward, high risk, right? I think there's a lot of stuff to be like it's like everyone that I've spoken to, they want to like share accountability with the community, right? And drive these things. But I think at the same time, too, you got to recognize that people are gambling in a sense, right? When you mint, you gamble. Like you gamble 2 times, right? One, that you think that the project is worth something more and it's undervalued at the mint price. And 2, it's like, dude, I'm literally like rolling the dice to figure out which like traits I get, right? Like maybe I get a super rare, right? But like same thing if you think about it. And there's a like exhilaration of that. So yeah, the whole fiasco that I haven't seen much of like Degentown. I was just trying to understand what happened. But yeah, it doesn't sound like what I thought would happen, right? Like I clearly like, some people like pumping and pushing out things is definitely not okay if there's nothing substantial behind it, right? But I think it's also towing the line of like, how much accountability do you want to have for this launch pad, right? Like where do you draw the line? And I think it's like it's a very tough question to ask, right? Because even for you guys and your launch pad and everybody else, it's like, well, what happens when it is a true project and they don't mint out, right? Like there's also like the opposite side of that too, right? But just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, because obviously I tripped into something really, really like spicy.
No, it's so hard, and I'm gonna almost like take off my hyperspace hat and talk more as like a just like a person. I think it depends on how you've marketed the launchpad itself. So, for example, if projects that launch off LMNFT or Creator Machine, these tool providers, if projects from those rug, no one cares because they weren't stamping anything. They were merely providing launchpad services.
Yeah.
But when marketplaces launch or name brands launch, inevitably, even if you try to position yourself as a tool provider, there is a certain level of marketing, organic marketing, that comes in with the fact that you are launching that project. When Magic Eden launches a project, even if Magic Eden isn't endorsing the project directly, or if they try their best to say that we're not putting any stamp on this, they are inevitably.
Right, but that's true though, right? Like if they do launch, if some project launches on Magic Eden, right, that is a stamp of approval, right?
Correct.
To whatever their internal, because not everybody can go launch on Magic Eden, right?
Right.
Okay.
But to Magic Eden's defense, and maybe it's not even defense, and I'm thinking about this in a apologies for coming from a finance background perspective, but like when, for example, when WeWork IPO'd with Jamie Dimon and or not Jamie Dimon with JP Morgan, and then WeWork started crashing, or any of these stocks, like Palantir, blah blah blah. I don't think anyone blames the bank that was responsible for the IPO for their downfall. Furthermore, as someone that comes from M&A, I don't think when a company that gets bought by a private equity firm ends up tanking, or because of market conditions, the company doesn't do well.
Yeah.
You don't blame the investment bank for falsely advertising whatever. Obviously, this is a little different because I think there's far more micro influence that these like launch pads have than banks do.
There was also no substance. There was not a company. There was nothing.
Correct. So
like Palantir was at least a business, and they're doing probably millions of dollars of whatever business, or like I have no
but I'm saying the same argument could be made.
Like the Theranos too,
right, so. Exactly. I think the same argument could be made that these higher level traditional finance firms could also be held responsible, but they're not, because they're more advisors.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no public, like, response from like the community, like people who even do like secondary, I like, get participation in the IPOs, like they don't blame the bankers, like culturally. Um, it is interesting to see like in the NFT space, like that does happen on the Launchpad services, more so than anything else. But do you think like maybe like actually like it's a good question, right? Like where do you see Launchpads from these marketplaces? Like do you think those two things should be together? Like do you think that it's almost like a very incestuous relationship, right? In a sense, right? Like you can make a little bit, right? Like clearly from the last example, right? But although like Degentown aside, I think there were, from what I heard, like from you guys, it sounded like it was a complete degenerate, like like mystery box,
It
right?
was. It was.
Probably some good marketing, but like completely like it was pretty what it is what it was, which was like a rug. Like at no point did I ever see like assume from what you guys told me that that's like a legit project. Um,
No. Actually, so in an ideal world, my personal opinion, this doesn't reflect hyperspace, is that launchpads and marketplaces would be separated,
yeah,
right? I think at hyperspace we try to take more of a serious approach with our launchpad because it's not like our bread and butter. So we only want to launch like projects that we believe will do well, projects that the market like believes will do well, like people who are contributing to helping improve either the Solana ecosystem or the NFT ecosystem. Like that's the goal. But I do think it should be separated because of what you said. It's a bit incestuous that there's like thin lines. Like also there was the whole argument like a few weeks ago of like selling your NFTs right after launch. Or like you're selling on the same marketplace as the Launchpad. Brian, what do you think? Like, I feel like ideally it would be separation, right?
I mean, if we're gonna go that route, I would say ideally, and no dig at Notify because I think companies like Notify are a different case. But if you're building a project on Solana and you have all these great devs with all these great plans to stake and build a rarity bot, blah blah blah, you should theoretically be able to handle your own mint. Like the fact that
yep,
launchpads exist in general is an
yeah,
interesting thought. I actually think that there will be two varying ends in the longer run. I think either there will be the launchpad slash tools that people that don't know how to code, people that don't know how to do anything, that just want to launch an NFT project, like a celebrity, or I want to jokingly make like a Brian collection, goes on, uploads pictures, and it turns into an NFT. It's not even a launchpad; it's just a photo uploader that turns into NFTs. The other end, projects should create their own candy machines and generate. And honestly, like obviously, I'm not a smart contract developer, but hearing from their end, like once that process is automated, it won't be that hard of a thing to do. And if you're theoretically able to do all these great things that are on your roadmap that you say that you're going to do, I don't. Besides marketing, I don't know why you would need a launchpad theoretically. So, but
Here,
the
let me
difficulty
answer that.
the difficulty with what you said though is now I'm putting my hyperspace back on is I forget the exact stat Santosh told me, but a significant portion of everyday volume comes from mints, like secondary volume from mints. So inevitably, marketplaces, to Paul's point about king making, benefit from having launchpads. In fact, they need launchpads to happen, especially in this wild, wild west of everyone listing everything. Marketplaces growingly have less control over what projects list on them / trade on them, which is frankly great for hyperspace as the market gets fragmented. But just like on a higher level, it's very hard to separate the two because without them, I don't think marketplaces will do as well.
So to answer the why were launchpads created, if we think back to like November, December, whenever Magic Eden was creating theirs, there were probably others, but people were getting rugged quite often or wallet drained because the people who made mint sites weren't always honest with what was going on. So I think initially it kind of helped eliminate that, and it wasn't really until like Balloonsville happened where shit really hit the fan for Magic Eden's perspective. But that was the initial reason why Launchpads were created. Ideally, there'd be like maybe a system where people were able to audit and then they could launch on their own site. But the way it is the way it's structured is Launchpads are just by far the easiest method, ease of use, etc. Same marketplace. It just eliminates a lot of dev work, I think, for creators.
Yeah, I mean, at least for us, like when we launched, we had no idea what anything was. We didn't know about like what the mint concept was, in a sense, like what the secondary fees look like, or like royalties, all that stuff. We just had no like clue of like figuring that out. But once we got through like like doing the candy machine stuff, it was actually pretty simple, and we're like, oh, like I wonder what projects pay like $40,000 for to do the dev work on this, right? Like it's like I understand the art component, right? But then in terms of the engineering implementation, it was like I think we like took someone's like we forked somebody's repo and then modified it to be, because like I think it was like it wasn't good enough. So we fixed it. And we're like, oh, like I think one of our engineers spent like 30 minutes on it, like, yep, I'm done. But yeah, no, I think to your point, like the validation, authentication, and kind of all that like security is probably going to be in play a bigger role. Because like I think constantly NFTs are fighting against like scams, right? Like it's so like embedded in it that like you never know clearly. Like I think outside the top like 10% of NFTs, like everything else is like very like it's very hard to discern what exactly the project is doing. So I mean, philosophically, that's why I never buy anything that's not like a blue chip. Because I mean, to me, it's like, okay, there's some community there, and there's some like validation that's happened, right? Or like I can take someone else's due diligence and be like, great, it's fine. Or like equating it to like real life values, right? So like I have a doodle, because like I really love the art, but also like they're pretty active. They do a lot of like crazy shit, like especially in New York. So it's like, okay, fine, right? That seems like a pretty cool, like safe, not safe, but it's like I'm getting benefits on top of like the art that I like, right? Hopefully that becomes more normal, right? Like there is like a tie-in from like the digital and physical world. But yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this topic pretty exhaustively. What else is in the news right now that you guys want to chat about?
There's
more.
I want to like stay off Magic Eden because they're obviously always talked about, and we've had some strife recently. Before hold on, there is one topic, but before we move on, I had an interesting thought, Paul.
Yeah.
You keep saying like, oh, like actually, I would say everyone on this call, we're not degens by any means.
I don't know, man. I feel like I'm pretty degen right now. I'm pretty sure like most of my bags are in crypto, so it's a gamble.
I wonder. I don't know how to say this properly. I wonder what percent of like builders / platform founders / workers of the space actually participate in mints, because I think that's a good signal for what people actually value. Like the same way I'm trying to make an allusion to how employees at Facebook don't allow their kids to have Facebook because they know that using Facebook like is relatively negative for mental health for their kids. Like I remember I heard from I forgot the main guy that like escaped Facebook or whatever. Or I know that like I would assume like Jewel founders, they don't want their kids to do Jewel. Like I wonder what percent of NFT people participate in NFTs. And I would assume it's higher than other industries because it's the cause and effect is flipped. People usually get interested in NFTs and then they work for NFTs. But I wonder like how many NFT platform people participate in mints.
I think it's relatively high, right? But I think the one thing that holds people back as founders and builders in the NFT space is more probably around like time, right? Like like I don't think you have the time enough to like, sit in a Discord and get whitelists and stuff, right? But then there's another meta that no one really talks about is that like whitelists are shared between different founders. like that's a thing, right? There's a lot of like different alpha groups or founder groups and builder groups that are just like, hey, we have like X amount of whitelists for people here, right? Like it does happen, right? And I think it's like a different meta than like the general pop, right? But yeah, I don't know if that's like widely known, but like I get offered whitelists all the time. I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like, what time is it? 2 o'clock in the morning? I'm going to sleep, dude.
So that's an interesting point because there was a whole space about this whitelist meta yesterday because there's like there's some sharp money or like just like influencer money like groups where they know the mints and they might be pumping and dumping. We don't really know. We're not very clear as to what their intentions are, right? And so there was a space last night, a Schillenveld space with like 500 people. He brought up a lawyer, and the lawyer was saying that a lot of these people could be ending up going to jail. Like I don't know how serious it was. Yeah, but because people are tweeting stuff without hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
something in that regard. Like maybe
I think that is to your point, Benny. Like that is a big thing that I think people haven't really thought about, right? Like shilling on like public domains, right? Or like Twitter is a good example, right? I do think that something's going to happen relatively like soon in the next like 18 months or so that, you can't just like, if you have that much influence, right? And this is like an influencer thing, right? It's you can't just publicly shill a project, right? And not disclose that you're an investor, right? Because that's kind of dishonest, right? It's dishonest and honestly in like a lot of the Web2 parallels, you can't do that, right? You just simply can't do it, right? You can't just go onto a public forum, right? Where there's community and people and just completely just take a marketing approach to it and not call it out, right?
This is a super spicy topic.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
As like a project founder, do you ever tell people to go buy your project? Like, what do you say there?
Buy my like tokens or buy my NFTs.
Yeah. Do you ever?
I always tell that.
Say check it out or something.
No. What I usually say is I only tell. So there's only one group of people I tell them to buy my NFTs, and those are investors. So it's like, oh, you wanna participate in my round? Go. You should. Do you have one of our NFTs? If not, you should get one. Right? Like, because I think it's just generally like for us, it's like it's part of like the support, right? Also, it's like you're kind of one of us. Like, do you even have NFTs? If not, like, how like what's your affinity to Web3, right? Yeah, there's like a huge story about that I can talk about, but generally, like, yeah, I don't really shill or pump our like NFTs. I think our NFTs are like, really cute. They're really awesome, and they give you like special features. But yeah, I don't think we do any like, oh, please go buy our stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, like one of the distinctions that we made for our collection was that all the mint proceeds would just go back to the people, right? Back to the community. Because it was interesting because like, we've had internal discussions about this, and I had to remind people, I was like, we aren't an NFT project, right? So that mint and all the secondary volume, right? We're just gonna use that for like throwing events or buying swag, right? Like we already raised money, guys. Like this is not like we don't need to raise money for our project, so they're completely separated. So yeah, there's not much that we've done to push that answers your question, right? I only push my investors. It's like I shame them. It's like, do you guys have one of our NFTs? Like, if not, you should. Like, you should definitely.
Benny, you were on the lawyer spaces, so you probably have more thoughts. But Paul, I think you had an interesting point about how there's clearly well, there's no regulation right now, so it's not illegal by definition, but in comparison, very illegal things happening. There's a difference between what seems illegal versus what will be practically illegal. Do you guys think it's, and I already have my answer for this, do you guys think it's possible for the level of regulation that TradFi gets for NFT slash Web3? Because theoretically, let's like go through a mental exercise of what that would mean. You would need regulators to audit tweets, go through DMs, figure out who these people are, tie them back to these projects, like provide evidence of these people shilling, define what shilling means, define what illegal shilling means, define what the law is very based on my limited understanding of law is precedents and definitions. And I think there would be insane amounts of work that would require people to be pulled in, experts on the matter who are like sometimes 15-year-olds, non-law folks. So I can't even begin to think how this entity would even come about / regulate without just like nuking the entire industry.
Well, I think there's like a lot of parallels to Web 2, right? Like a lot of these regulations and kind of rules and consumer protections are already there, right? They just haven't adapted to our technology, the new technology, right? And the user base, right? But like, like there's like stupid rules, like where like if you go do a commercial, you have to say all those like it's an ad, right? On TV. That's all like buyer protection, right? Consumer protection, right? So I wouldn't say like it's completely like absurd to think that it's going to happen with our industry. It's just a question of how does it happen and how's it going to employed and what are like the the penalties and fees, right? Because right now it's like, look, there's no rules, right? Because there's no like there's no like no one hitting you and saying like we're gonna fine you like $5 million, right? But I think as soon as you like turn that card on, it only takes like one example, right?
For sure.
It only takes one good example, and it's like maybe an 18-year-old's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, right? Like, because I don't want to be jeopardized, right? But yeah, I mean, it's gonna happen, right? I think if you look at the other stuff that's happened in our system in the last couple months, like the last 2 months, right? Like, fuck, Terra was like $90 like 60 days ago, right? So like things have changed drastically in a short time span, right? And I think a lot of it's coming back to is consumer buyer protection, right? Because unless we like, unfortunately for us, we've also suffered that as an industry, right? We've taken a big step back, right? It was close. Like I think I was like, it was like shockingly close. Like consumers were ready to onboard, right? They're coming in, and then all of a sudden, like it just disappears. Like a whole chain disappears overnight, right? So it took a step back for a lot of people, and I think what's going to happen now is like there is going to be bigger investment into like regulation and some kind of governance board to incorporate that into. But I think it's actually probably helpful, right? Because I think that will bring back a lot of consumer like confidence in a sense. Like the whole FDIC crap, right? Like people really like feel strongly about that, right? And it's just like a stamp. I mean, of course, it's like a lot more complicated than that, but like people need that, right? Like the general population needs that. Degens like us don't care, right? Because it's a gamble, right? Like, despite what everyone was saying about like Terra and Anchor, I was like, that shit was a gamble, right? Like it was a total gamble. It was never the point where it was like, this is safe, right? And I think that's like the biggest difference between like us and some other like people coming in from Web 2 is that they actually truly believe that it was completely risk-free, right? And that's why I think that things will be changing and for the better, right? Because that's the only way that it's going to be able to like unlock the next like billion people coming in.
Do you think something? Do you think Bitcoin is also a gamble or no?
Right now?
Wow.
Like right now.
Yeah.
I think everything outside of stable coins right now is a gamble. And even some stable coins.
Not all stable coins are great.
Dude, it's actually kind of weird because I'm wearing a USDC shirt.
Are you shilling your own bags? Do you have bags of USDC, bro?
I mean, it's not gonna be shilled. It's pegged at $1.
Oh man.
No, I ran out of t-shirts today, and I had this one on the top of my dresser.
Wait, Benny,
I don't know if I told you guys. I used to work at Circle.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think you guys may not know that, but yeah, I was at Circle before I came into fully into Web3.
Benny, when you asked that question, did you mean you meant just in general, right? Like, do we think that Bitcoin is a gamble, like as a chain / currency?
Yeah, well, I mean, Paul was saying like most of his investments are in crypto, which he thinks to an extent is a degen play, a gamble, right? Which I think in a macro scale it probably is. But I was just wondering if Bitcoin could be held in that like same regard.
To be clear, most of my investment now is in JPEGs. um, it's in JPEGs, and also like the fact that I'm a founder, so like like a lot of my time, energy, and personal investment has been in the company, right? So we're tied to crypto one way or the other, right? So that's why it's also my biggest bag, right? Like this is what we're hoping is like the next wave of future adoption, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like to answer your question, like I mean, didn't BTC get classified as a commodity now?
I read
Yeah,
that somewhere.
Brian knows.
right?
Yeah, maybe Brian knows more because he's a TradFi guy. But
So actually, related to that, I think that NFTs someday will be separated into two classes. You know, one will be the art side of things, and then one will actually be securities. So you can invest in startups. The blockchain just makes it all easier, and that's something they're talking about with the SEC.
Maybe we should
No,
have the
like
SEC.
they are.
We should have the SEC on next podcast. See what their
Yeah.
thoughts are.
we should. You know what we should definitely have? We should have somebody from TradFi, right?
Yeah,
That would be amazing. You're like,
I could probably get someone for real. We should get someone that's like a TradFi Launchpad, like someone who's like IPO'd a company before and see what their thoughts are. Or runs like Fidelity, like E-Trade, like someone that runs
a Fidelity person here.
like someone that runs a marketplace for stocks.
I feel like we're just gonna make fun of them the entire time. But yeah, I think I mean the NFT side of things has always been kind of like interesting for me, just because I'll be pretty honest, like back when I started, like, so I onboarded the crypto during DeFi summer, right? And mostly from like the DeFi perspective, right? Never believed in NFTs until February when I first bought mine, right? And the first one I bought actually was because somebody from the NFT collection was like peer pressuring me right then and there to buy it, like literally, and I was like,
maybe that's what you should do.
No, but it was like, it was also, so it was an SMB, right? So I was like, yeah. So I was like, okay. Like, and then it was like, I think what convinced me and compellingly was like, I met a couple people who were literally like doing this full time, right? They quit their jobs, they're not getting paid, right? And they're literally going and trying to build this kind of community, right? So like full dedication. So it's like at any point in my life when I meet people who like literally take that leap of faith, right, and dedicate themselves to like a mission, right, you'll always have my like support, right? Because that takes extreme amount of like balls to do that, right? Like that's super hard to do, right? Conviction plays are very, very rare, right? So you believe in the people more so than you believe in what the product is, in a sense, right? So that was like my rule of like investing in that, right? And it's been great. Like the community has been super supportive, and when people like I become like a staunch supporter of these like NFT communities, because like it's real. It's actually a real thing, right? And I think I usually tell that to a lot of the people that I meet who are always skeptical about NFTs. I'm like, not all communities are like, ruggy and like scammy and stuff, right? Some are real cool ones. And one of the ones that I'm part of is like SMBs, right? Yeah. Do you guys have any other like collections that you guys are a part of that are like super community driven or like active?
I actually don't have that many. I'm too poor for expensive NFTs. I've been part of this is not a show at all. Night Fork Spoon, which is a game hub, which is Game Hub now. They've been always active. They actually created a video game from the start where community members partake in like a Mario Party-esque thing. Um, I was in Days Ducks for a little bit. They're pretty active. I sold just because it went up a little bit and sold at the top. Benny, are you in anything that's like active, like community driven?
I mean, there's the groups I'm a part of, which are Money Maxis and the Crypto Cowboys. I'd say a lot of things are probably going to be community driven there. Federation Fox, I think, was more utility driven, but they have a strong community at the core. Other projects that just have like strong communities that I'm not a part of are like Stoned Apes, for example.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think Catalina Whales is there.
They're
Too,
very
right?
cool.
Catalina
Yeah.
Catalina
Whales.
Whales.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else is good? Well, of course, D-Gods.
Yep.
D-Gods is the weirdest parties that I've ever been to. But then it's like when you take a step back, you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, right? It's like, okay, like no wonder, right? Like it perfectly matches the art, right? Like, but no, I think D-Gods has a really, really healthy community. I met a lot of people who were in that community that didn't know crypto, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, like they weren't crypto people. They were just like normal people who got, like they believe in Frank, right? Like it's like, hey, like the conviction play again, right? It's like I think I went to the DGOTS party in New York and just talked to a lot of people, and they didn't hold other NFTs or other crypto assets. They were just like, I love DGOTS as a brand, right? So that was actually pretty cool.
Do you think that
enough.
could be? Do you think that could ever be like just normal people just putting all their one eggs into baskets? Because like DGods is a established project that has the most, I would say, a higher chance than most projects to go to the moon, for example.
I don't know, but Burma, what do you think about that?
Well, in my opinion, I think that's largely what it is, because to truly immerse yourself into NFTs, it's kind of like almost a daily grind. Like you have to be active with like your investments to keep up with like project updates, where something like Notify and like our integration with you guys will help, but it's a grind like to keep up.
It's very demanding. And I think
Yeah,
people,
so like buying the most established project that kind of simplifies that area, while also you probably have the best chance to go to the moon, for example.
for sure. It's like it's blue chip. It's blue chip season.
Yeah, blue chip. Yeah, exactly. So those normal people who you met who only own DGods, like they believe in the project, they believe in that, like DGods specifically is like a blue chip, I think.
Yeah, and I think DGots also has like a certain vibe too, right?
They do.
They have that vibe, and I think that's like really like that's like their superpower, right? Like that's a very distinctive vibe, and people love it, right?
Right.
Funny enough, like I have a story like where the first time I got into crypto, like when we started our company and we went to the first Solana hacker house, met Frank, and he was shilling DGods then on stage, and I was like, I don't know what this is, right? Like I was like, well, I was still skeptical about NFTs then, and even more so in LA, because everybody I met was just like, oh, I'm an artist, right? I'm here to look for developers, and I'm like all this stuff, and I'm just like, is there anyone building at this hacker house except for us? Like we were just like coding, and then everyone else is just like in marketing or like design. But met Frank, and I think at the time like the DGods floor was like 2 SOL.
Wow.
I was like, okay, how do I buy one of these? And and obviously it never got through because like I got busy with like hacking and stuff, and then they done super well, right? But I think from the start, like he created something cultural, right, which is like super hard to do, right? And then built a community who embodies that culture, right? And I think at the end of the day, like that's also why I'm a part of SMBs, right? They have a culture, right? And I think that's gonna be the next big wave of stuff that happens. Like you're gonna start to see more of these NFTs like embody certain culture aspects, and people want to be part of it. It's like what is it called? It's like Burning Man, dude. You know, like you build your own tribes, your own communities, right? And you vibe with that culture and vibe with that, like the people that compose that, right? And then, I think that's really powerful. I think humans as like a society and as a cult, like as a race, like culture and community is like one of the biggest things out there, right? And I think what NFTs do is build a proxy for that, right? Because like you have the founders or the head collection guys, and then they set a precedence, right? It's like a company almost, right? And then everybody who wants to participate can join in a sense. But
well, both of you, I wish we could do this all day, like realistically, but we unfortunately have jobs. So I need to hop. But before we go, I did want to ask Paul. Me and Benny talk about this a lot. I think we talked about it in various lights during this hour, but very big, broad question. Where do you think NFTs are headed? Final statement.
That's what the hell kind of question is that, dude? Like, here's where I hope it's headed, right? I hope it becomes like a proxy. Yeah, I hope it's a proxy for you as an identity in a sense, right? It's almost like brand affiliation in a sense, right? I think that's what people have known for the past 100+ years. And I think that's it's going to be like the first like big wave, right? Like, why are you in the doodles? Why are you in the Bored Apes, right? Like you have to self-identify somehow in a sense, right? In crypto especially, right? And I think beyond just investing, right? But it's really about like your brand and your kind of like grander cultural fit for some of these projects, right? I think that's kind of where it's headed. I think it's starting to happen now, right? Like you can see it, right? You can see it kind of like divide itself. Like if you're like beyond just like the degen investors, right? Like now, like when you have normies coming in or more like general pop coming in, right? They're gonna start to pick and choose which culture, which like area they want to also be affiliated to, right? And I think that's gonna start to happen way more so. So hopefully, it's extensions. Like, why do you wear Nike stuff? Right? Or why do you shop? Why do you have a Subaru? Right?
It's like describe me.
Yeah, I mean, humans everybody wants to classify themselves somehow, right? Yes. And that's like the unfortunate side of things, right? Because as people want to self-identify with like a brand or like group of things, then you have like brands come in who also want to do marketing too, right? And then you have this vicious like advertisement like cycle, right? A consumption. But that's human nature for the last like 100+ years at least, right? Even further than that. But like I don't think that's going to be that far off from NFTs. NFT is going to be another extension of that.
Wow. Paul, thanks for your time. I actually think let's keep doing these because I think Spaces kind of prevents this level of open conversation sometimes just because of the crowd and like the tone. But I think these are much more. Me and Benny have had obviously only 3, but crazy conversations in my opinion. Great conversations that actually push the space forward.
Yeah, I like it because like you don't have to also like chill. Like, personally, like it's like. It's like that's what Twitter Spaces are, right? But I think these are more like personal conversations, or at least like more open to just like going with the flow. But yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Seriously.
Do it again. Yeah.
Talk soon, boys.
Thank you guys.
Later.